School sucks!
A little bit of a provocative opening, especially at a educators conference, huh? But there are a lot of reasons why school sucks for kids these days. Lots of reasons. They're being bullied, they're failing, they are just isolated socially from their peers. Maybe it's too expensive for them. They're having financial problems. Maybe it's, just not a good place, an attractive place for them. They don't like the environment that they're in. Could be that other opportunities out there are just a lot more appealing to them. I mean, there's so much stuff going through our students' heads these days, and most of the time, educators, don't even know what's going on in a kid's head. So our challenge was how to create learning opportunities for students who are being pushed out of traditional education, and to that end, the question is now what? If a kid's being pushed out, now what do you do? So our vision was to develop a network that has both an online and face-to-face components to kind of help those kids. So we are going to introduce the School Successful project.
And so with that, when students start getting the idea in the head that school does suck, they come to the School Successful site, and also known as SSP, and on there creating eHarmony-like profiles where they give their reasons why school sucks for them. And with that, it creates a network of people and resources that match the reasons that why they think school sucks for them. Initially, this would just be for high school and college, but eventually could expand to other areas as well. And with it, it would be obviously a very safe and secure for both the mentors on there as well as the students, so that parents and educators and districts could feel secure about sending their students to this place. And there'd be different levels of engagement for each different student or mentor. So some people might not want to be a part of the YouTube or eHarmony or the Skype, but maybe they just want to type out their questions where mentors could respond. Or maybe they're looking for a more personal, whether they're at college and they don't have that community of support for whatever reason or interest it might be, and using other resources like meetup.com, where they could, on their own local area, find a group of students or peers or mentors that are interested in their same things. The other part of that is with that creating portals to different resources. So students in high school that are unsure about how to get to college, whether it's for what type of major or even what type of school, or how to finance their way to there. And then the calendar of events, so like the meetup.com site. And one of the main things is Skype-based mentoring. So students could come on, and through their network of why they said school sucks, there would be several mentors available to them that they could, like the Granny Cloud, have access to someone that was once in their same shoes and give them advice. And also it could be student to student. So students that are just out of high school or in their place right now, or maybe just came through something that they were struggling with, could give advice to someone their own age. And so with that, here are a couple examples.
Hey Ashley, my name's Matt, and I'm wondering if I should stay in high school, because right now I don't even have the money to go to college. The kids in my school are really mean, and I'm not really interested in school anyways, because it's so hard. What should I do?
Hi Matt. Well, truth is, I was in your situation too my junior year of high school, and look at me now, 2 years later. I'm halfway through college getting my communications degree, and the truth is, I felt the same way, and I can help you out. Hi Bridget, my name's Ashley. I'm a junior. Basically, I'm graduating next year, and I have no clue what I want to do after high school, and I'm pretty much stuck. I mean, I don't have any money. I don't know what college I want to go to, or if I even want to go to college. Can you help me out?
Hi, Ashley. I know just how you feel. Gosh, I remember it was like yesterday. So let me just share with you what I did and see if this helps you in any way.
And so aside from that, we realized that more than just online and in person, there's much more to do to try and change things before they get to this point. And so with that, Bridget is going to talk about the next level of the School Successful Institute.
So we thought that this would, will you do that, please? Thank you. We thought that this would also be a really powerful tool for teachers and counselors down the line. Basically, teachers are saying that, the village isn't showing up and we're forced to focus on the standards when what the students really need is that emotional and social support. So talking about kind of lobbying, well, here's workshops for teachers, parents, other stakeholders, a place where they can go and kind of learn what they need to do to support the students. And then just advocating for policy change, at least K through 8, so that teachers are in those grades specifically take some of the burden away from just the academic push and that accountability, and make them more accountable for their students' emotional and social success as well. So measuring that and focusing their professional goals on that piece as well. And that's it.
So we want kids basically coming to school, well, I guess our time is up. Not saying that school sucks, but that school is successful. So thanks a lot.
Thank you for coming in with the, it's terrific. The name's brilliant. I kept thinking that, almost that you had a really simple idea, and I'd like stick with that as almost, the spectrum of school sucks to school successful, and almost what you're at the end of how could this be a discovery process for schools and students to, almost capture the feelings of students that it does suck. They aren't happy there, and to kind of go through a process of dealing with that. I don't care whether it's the internet or not, but it's not so much solving that problem as much of understanding it. Just to say, a business, does the HR and others look at what how do employees feel about an organization, and they kind of try to understand that and see if there's anything they can do to improve morale or the culture and other things. And there might be really productive things that come out of going through a process like this. And that's kind of I thought was a brilliant, like keeping it less. Keeping it simple might be a really good way to test this and try it out, because you could do this as a discussion group in schools and really trying to catalog some of the thoughts and just even the videos that you have there. Not trying to solve the problem, but just trying to get it on the table more, I think is pretty powerful.
Well, and building on that, so the Business Innovation Factory in Providence, Rhode Island, did a project where they cataloged students' experiences in higher education. So they just interviewed them about, what they liked, what was going well, what wasn't going well. And then they've posted them all online, and they've actually figured out what the themes were. But it was completely open-ended for the students to be able to talk about mostly what their challenges were. There were not a lot of this is going great. And so even something as simple as capturing a bunch of student videos and just saying, this is what I think sucks about school, I think could be really, simple and elegant and interesting. The other thing that I loved about what you guys talked about was the professional development piece. And so marrying that idea with all the other folks who thought that mentoring was a good idea, because if any of you have ever mentored, it's not easy, or tried to get other people to mentor. And so I think the most successful programs are the ones that have some sort of professional development. And so I really appreciated that you had added that to your idea. The other thing that I was really excited about, again, connecting with the group that had the teacher with the blindfold on, it would be really interesting to contrast what the teacher sees and what the student sees, sort of all in one stop, because I think they're having such different experiences, and I'm sure there are times when teachers also say school sucks, but for a whole variety of different reasons. So I think that those two are both really interesting approaches.
And actually watching your video and see the Road Trip Nation students in there made me think for Lisa, one idea you might consider for these collabs is to have a group of students and teachers available to just kind of, that you could do some interviews with and do some study of and get them to kind of react and maybe even build on real experiences that they have, because it'd be fascinating. So we're not just scripting stuff, but we actually learn from kind of almost prototyping that early version, taking it to some students and say, what do you think about this? So it might be something.
Did every group get to interview somebody? Yeah, okay. Right. Or 2 people, okay. So, but I think just adding that second layer. Right. Actually, I think the other thing that's interesting is just being able to test these ideas with students, because I think in the group that I sat in, it was interesting to get their reaction when you had to kind of draw it out a little bit. But when they wanted to react, it was often very different. We all have these great ideas because we're sort of remembering being a student, and they actually are living it. And so just being able to test these ideas with students, I think any of the ideas would be great.
Yeah. And one of the thoughts I had on this project, which I think deserves testing out, is how do you engage people initially in this, like whether it's a website or other things. Is it's not necessarily a comfortable space to be negative or to say this if people are going to put it on the record somehow. So it takes a level of trust that you'd have to really think through to make it happen.
And which were the most compelling other kind of platforms that you guys thought about building on? Is there something in particular that you would say this is going to be our first step to implement this?
Really, keep in mind that we wanted to do something that was going to be scalable. So like you guys keep it kind of simple and getting it smaller. I think having that combination of the online and the face-to-face is really critical to our particular model. The online part, I think, is the easier part in a lot of ways because there's a lot of technology that enables you to do that kind of thing right now. I think the more challenging part would be getting the face-to-face component going and doing that in a way that's safe for the kids as well. And also the political advocacy part, I think, is very important too, but would be very challenging. Because, people can come up with great ideas to want to make change and to do that, but unfortunately, a lot of the times in this day and age, you have to work within the structure of government and politics and that type of thing to get that done.
Is there another hand, or were you just resting your head?
I was just resting my head. I was thinking that we had talked about kind of initially for safety issues and also just kind of, like you were saying, archiving these experiences. What's your experience? And just making that available so that a child who was considering dropping out or having difficulty could go and, do the checklist thing, like you were saying, these are all the reasons school sucks for me, and then bam, all these videos that are tagged, kind of pop up, and these are people who had similar experiences or, similar challenges, and then they just, flip through and watch and get ideas.
So it's a little bit like sort of Amazon, Netflix mashup. But you know what I mean? Like, the people like you also hated English, but they were successful eventually.
Downward spiral there.
Exactly. I am so depressed.
Reinforcing my negative attitudes. Yeah.
So we're out of time, Dale.
Yes, we are.
So we're going to give wrap-up comments, and by that I mean Dale.
Really? What she said. No, well, thank you for sharing your ideas. It's there's a bit of artifice to this you have a few days, you're working, a bunch of people, you're kind of thrown together, and it's, I think it's fabulous just to see what's, lots of ways forward from here of thinking positively about change, of recognizing that, as a group you can come up with really interesting ideas. We can always sit there and diagnose the problems all day long, but what are we going to do? Is the most critical thing. And I hope you take away from the experience that this kind of transfers to working with other people, coming up with other ideas, thinking of other problem situations. And often the best things, start because you have a specific thing you want to solve, a specific problem or see a specific opportunity rather than something that's really general or really large. But then making the connection with other people who are solving that other piece of the puzzle is the big opportunity today to not do it in isolation, not even do it in isolation within a school district, but connect to other people. You have to believe that the thing you're solving relates to other people, other schools, other situations. That, to me, is what scaling is about. Not so much, thinking that this has to be really big. It's simply that you're working on something that relates to even the broader than the personal context you arrived at it.
I would just say that, A, I agree. And then B, I think that as you heard, I kept sort of linking you each back to each other because I think the big idea is that so much of this is related. And I think that there's a lot of power in this room to start to figure out where those linkages are, to try to test some of those simple, easy things that we talked about. Because, like I said, we hear about sort of this notion of, mentoring and connecting students with the community, both in the higher ed space as well as K-12. And yet we just don't see people really just jumping out there and trying it. And I think part of the theme of this conference has been about it's okay to take risks, it's okay to be wrong, it's okay to sort of prototype really quickly. So I hope that you're going to actually continue to do that because there are really some amazing ideas in this room. So thank you so much for letting us do this.
Yeah, just one last thought. Maybe, Lisa, next year's conference, try to go back to the folks in these groups and have have them recount what happened, from here to then, and see if any of these ideas got tried, at some level. Even if you just, organize a discussion group to talk about school sucks, or, someone develops some of the specific parts here, and just talk about that. One thing you and I had a conversation I just thought was fairly useful is about the one model of this is, now how do I get funding to do this kind of project? And I think the answer is you don't. You have to find a way to bring this to life with meager resources, volunteer labor, sweat equity, whatever you want to call it. But you have places like this festival to echo out and share that idea. And I think once you get some traction with something, then you can begin to go to people and say, how do I scale it? But, starting specific, starting small and saying we had some success with it, I think is, and I was mentioning places like Kickstarter, where it's kind of like, if you're not familiar with that, take a look at it. Ask, it's kind of crowdsourcing of funding for a worthwhile project. People are saying, I need $10,000 to do this, and I'm going to. But think about keeping it small. And I think the force of technology today is to allow you to do things pretty cheaply. And if it's getting expensive, you're probably going down the wrong road.
And then so then we're really leaving. But the last thing I would just say is I think, start small, but also think about which of these things could be piloted in a big way. Because I think what's also intriguing is the small ideas in some ways could actually be piloted on a large scale. So, again, sort of the Yoda idea or the concierge idea or a number of these things, the build, you could, in fact, pilot on a pretty large scale. You could go, through several districts. You could take on several communities at once. They don't all have to be, we're only working with 10 people. You'll know which ones need to be, but I would just encourage you to figure out which ones you're able to pilot at a large scale and which ones require a smaller scale. Okay, I swear I'm getting off. But thank you all so much.